So tonight's session was all about um, how we how we deal with the way I guess we value ourselves and things like um, valuing image over authenticity, and I can relate to being that way in my family growing up. The image that my mother would want to portray to friends and family and people out in public was much different than how we were at home. And out in public, we were supposed to be very respectful and very I guess mannered and all these things, and even to some degree at home, but the environment at home was totally different. And I remember a big chunk of my life where the what I portrayed to others, the image that I portrayed to others was so much more important than being myself. And it was confusing because I would, at least for me, because sometimes the image that I would portray would be based on what I thought others wanted of me, right? And that's what kind of, it's part of that whole people pleasing type of thing. We also talked about being hypersensitive to criticism, and I can relate to that for sure. I remember points in time in my relationship where she would give me criticism, and I would overreact, and then have to get away from the situation and then think about it, and then come back and either apologize or take ownership for my side of it. But a lot of times my first reaction was to kind of bottle up and not listen or be bullheaded, and then there's a saying from Coach Corey Wayne. He says, no one will ever say or do anything to you that's not a direct reflection on how they feel about themselves. And I think there's a lot of truth in that. And I remember a lot of times where she would be critical of me or harsh on me, and I just could feel that it was really speaking to more about what was going on with her and her own struggles, and not a whole lot necessarily about me. But then I would always be like, well, how do I help her, right? Part of that me trying to save her type of mentality. How do I help her, right? And it's one of those tricky dynamics in relationships, right? The other one was how do you react when you feel disrespected? For me, I think that's really about who's trying to disrespect me and how, and what the motive is behind that, and whether it's someone I respect to begin with. I feel like I let a lot of things roll off my back or shoulders, and don't let it bother me at all. And then other things, maybe it appears that way, and then I do internalize it and kind of question, or even possibly even beat myself up over it internally. So it really just depends on who is talking about it. But I think the core message to work on, or the thing to try to figure out for yourself, is this whole search for your own identity, your own core values of who you believe you are, and your character, and really building up that belief in yourself to an extent where people can say almost anything about you, and you're like, no, that's fine, because I know who I am, and I know where I'm going or I'm growing, and I'm going to make mistakes along the way, and that's fine. But it's, I think that's more about what we're looking for, right? The other one is we talked about judging ourselves, and that's the biggest thing that I have an issue with. One of the biggest things is, I'm very harsh on myself, and I find that over the last couple months I've been very critical of myself because I've been beating myself up, because it was the end of a relationship that I wanted so badly to work, right? So there's part of me that has really questioned, my role in that, and how I could have done things differently, or whether I deserved it, and all of those types of questions come up when you have that type of thing, and it's totally natural to have those type of questions, I think. But again, it comes back to building myself back up again, where I feel okay with myself. And at this point in my journey, I think it's every day I'm learning more about myself and becoming more in tune with myself, and becoming stronger as an individual, as a person. One of my biggest things is dealing with that feeling of being alone, and I've learned that it's not so much about, for me, it's not so much about not having her around as much. It's more about the feeling of having somebody there for me, like feeling like there's someone there for me, someone that cares about me, someone that's interested in me and about my day and what I got going on in my life at that moment. And I did feel like I had that with her, even though sometimes I guess it was superficial or whatever. I did feel like I had that, and I'm learning to give that to myself as much as possible. And with other healthy friends and relationships. So, but that's what we worked on today. And like I said, I was gonna make one of these after every session to kind of document my journey and talk about what's going on, in hopes that this helps somebody else, or at least I can refer back to it later on down the road, when I can say I'm a healthier version of myself, right? So good night.